Ooh, 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 ooh. There's going to be so many people that don't like me today. And I'm not even going to try to, I'm not doing this for any kind of drama. I'll say that much. That's not what I'm doing this for. But I will say this. I will say this. I don't understand that people cannot ever have opinions anymore. That shit, to me, is really ridiculous to me. But we're going to jump into this. We got some interesting things to actually talk about here. And I've wrote it down. I typically don't, but I'm pretty passionate about this particular topic. Really, really passionate about it because it's a situation where I feel like needs to be kind of discussed amongst everybody, not just social media or blue check marks or anything like that. It just needs to be discussed. Um, and it's the sickness of looking for influencers to seek approval. That shit to me is like hella weird, personally. You know what I mean? So we're going to be talking about that in particular, and we're going to be talking about it's just your favorite games, why you like them, shit like that. Nothing too crazy. And that's what we're going to do. So if you do like this commentary, if you do like this podcast or spaces, I'm running a YouTube channel right now. It is a part of the YouTube. So it's being streamed on the YouTube right now at Gamecast, which that name is going to change soon, by the way. But it is being streamed on YouTube, Gamecast. That's all you would need for now. Um, and just make sure that you hit that subscribe button. It definitely helps. Whatever I'm saying in my podcast, it is definitely it's causing issues with how YouTube is actually broadcasting this shit, which I would need, some extra help in that regard. So without further ado, we are going to talk about the corporations and how they need to shut the fuck up. And the reason why I say this, right, is ever since that I can recall, I would say the Battlefield 4, Battlefield 5 or whatever, the one with the WW2 or WW1 time frame where you had the chick that was in the war with the prosthetics and the black guy and everything like that. And I believe um, EA told all of the fans, if you don't like it, you're on the wrong side of history. You guys remember that shit? Back when the world wasn't as sensitive? That one. Uh, that's the one I'm talking about. That's when I started noticing weird politics, right? Um, like strong politics in the game. And then everyone got outraged. They were so sick of the stupid politics. And the guy said, if you don't like it, don't buy our game. And then everybody was on board to say that, and we actually do not like it, and we're not going to buy your game. And so they had to backtrack on a whole bunch of shit. I'm not sure if the guy got fired or not, but whatever it was, they had to remove a whole bunch of shit. And then the granddaddy of the controversies and the pandering would be the Last of Us Part 2, where they had this situation. I remember talking about this shit like almost 3 years ago, where the first thing that they did show to everybody was the kiss between Ellie and Dina. And they spent a lot of time on this particular kiss. Longer than any heterosexual kiss that I've seen, which is no problem. And that's not saying it as if it's a problem, but I'm just painting the picture for you as to why people felt that way. So people immediately went over to like stating that, well, this is not what I signed up for. I don't know what they're pandering about, whatever the case is. So kind of brought a certain stigma to Naughty Dog. It's a certain stigma, and people couldn't prove anything at that moment, but it was a certain stigma. I believe Robin Gaiman, he used to do a whole bunch of reviews and stuff like that. He was a big fan of Naughty Dog. He talked about all this shit, and people got on his case. And then a leak came out stating that there was a transgender in The Last of Us Part 2 as a main character, which we now know as Abby, which, according to Naughty Dog, it isn't a transgender. And, just the whole pandering, they had the whole Joel being murdered. Shit like that. That's what was going on. That was the goings on with that game. And the reaction was really volatile. When people reported this shit, they were reported on YouTube and they had their videos taken down. You couldn't even talk about it. Even though my channel was much smaller, probably half of what it is, which is a crumb, also was affected by this as well. Now, I wasn't, because I know a lot of people actually like The Last of Us, including myself. I didn't want to spoil the game, but I said that some of the things that I've seen were concerning. That's what I did put in there. And because of that, I ended up, what the hell is this? Report as spam. Get out of here. Okay. One of the things that I did see that was pretty big. Well, that's what I ended up, kind of saying. I was like, from what I saw, there was a lot of this. People are not going to like it. That was about the nature. Because I was going to say it. If you want to look into it, then you can look into it. So that's how I kind of took it. Lo and behold, my video was taken down. The pictures got out. We saw Joel was killed. We saw Abby, which I believe personally was an inside job. But we saw all of this shit. And people went crazy. They went crazy. And then this whole, remember at the pandemic too, this whole thing where everybody became ultra fucking sensitive. You couldn't say anything at all. And more and more, especially during the pandemic, I've seen corporations kind of bend the knee to a lot of different things. Anything that was a hot topic, such as LGBT or Black Lives Matter or anything of that nature, these corporations were right at the forefront saying what they have to fucking say about LGBT. Now, great. People like it. People are LGBT. People want the representation. Fine. That's no problem at all. There is one problem that I see, and I can easily see that these companies are not about it. Not at all. What these companies do is that, and it blows me away that people need this confirmation from these influencers or companies to validate their points. What blows me away with this situation is that you think that these companies really give a fuck about you and your sexual preference and your race. They just want your money. And I thought that was really apparent. I thought a lot of things, honestly, were apparent, but it's apparently, common sense isn't really that common. So now we got a world where we got these corporations that will be all about the LGBT, all about Black Lives Matter, all about Black characters and inclusion in one country. And then because that other country ain't about that shit, they will change their whole stilo. They'll change their whole thing. They won't say anything about what's going on in the Western world. No LGBT, no lesbian, gay kiss, no fucking Black Lives Matter. They will go as far, especially with Disney, to remove some of the characters from the billboards, from the advertisements, so they won't lose fucking money. That's what we're dealing with now. And people are just front and center retweeting shit what a company would say is unprofessional. As a matter of fact, whoever is in charge of these social medias for these companies as well, to actually speak upon certain things. I think someone told Star Wars, the Star Wars handle, like, don't make things political. And they were like, if you don't like gay people, then you have a problem or something like that. And it's like, I don't think that that should be you should, because of how volatile politics are. There are rules. There were rules in place in the past that you couldn't bring up politics or religion, and the reason why is because of what we're dealing with now. This is a spiraling, out of control situation where companies will have to kind of like backtrack on certain things. Then we start to figure out these motherfuckers are super racist behind closed doors as well. You know, there's this thing with Microsoft. Apparently, he was saying some sexist and racist jokes. He was the head of what do you call it? Uh, I know he's just one person, by the way. He was the head of 343 or whatever, and they got his ass and they fired him or whatever the fuck they did. Then you had the 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 kitty dude from Sony. He's just one person, but still, you know what I mean? It's like the human nature is flawed as it is. Period. I don't understand why people will go to these companies and just automatically think that these companies are perfect. It's just weird to me. When I look at this shit, it is absolutely weird. I don't like this shit. Which brings me to the situation that we're dealing with now, and that is I don't even know if I can say it. Well, you know what the fuck's going on in the news. I don't even want to say it. About premature termination. I guess if I want to put it that way, YouTube may flip the fuck out if I say this shit. You got that shit going on, and these companies are siding. They shouldn't take sides. Period. As what Jim Ryan was saying, just don't say nothing at all. You can have your personal preference, but there is a reason. There is a reason why you don't bring up religion or politics in there, because it's too strong of an opinion. It's too ingrained in the person's life and psyche, and it feels like a personal attack. And sexuality, I think you can't mention that in the workforce either. But little by little, we are getting more and more and more of these companies saying one thing that leans to one direction. Let's get that out the way. And even if it didn't lean into one direction, you're going to piss off somebody, because again, the religion, sexuality, and politics is ingrained in the person. You can't break them apart. That's the thing. So with this whole premature termination situation, people don't understand where it actually came from. And you get all these straw mans, like just these outlandish examples, or there is either outlandish or it is highly improbable. You mentioned about incest, you mentioned about rape, and that's a big fucking issue, right? Reading the statistics of premature termination, it's like fucking 2% of incest and rape. The rest of the 98% is the person didn't want the child. But then people use that 2% as a way to say that you're taking away rights and shit like that. And I get the situation. I get it. It's big, big shit. But what I don't like is that because people don't like that decision was made. By the way, that decision is not banning premature termination. It isn't banning that shit at all. What it is doing is allowing, they're taking the federal out of this shit. They're allowing per state, right? As we know that this country is split right in the middle, red and blue, Democrat and Republican. But it's not enough to have decisions. You guys are going to learn to not want to have the government govern you as much as you would like them to. It is not a good thing to want that much government in your life, just to let you know. But either way, it's giving it back to the state. That's what it says. Now, the leap is, well, the red states are going to find some way to take it away from, LGBT and all this other shit. Like all these other things, right? There are ways to protest this shit properly. And the way that the system works in the US is that if something is passed that isn't agreed upon by the majority, there are ways to reverse it in a peaceful manner, not just the protests. Whatever's going on here, I think, truthfully, none of these corporations say a motherfucking thing because it's one-sided. B, well, that's fucking period. It's one-sided. That's the biggest problem. It's one-sided. And what I don't like as well is that you get a lot of self-righteous people that are like 60 years old. I get that they want equal rights or whatever the case is, right? I get that. But some of these people have like, men are saying, oh, you gotta do this. It's like, to me, and I don't know how to really say it without offending anyone, but no one fights this fucking hard for men. No one does. Oh, because I guess we had this tyrannical, like, this stronghold or whatever the case is. Well, guess what? I'm a black dude. I don't have no fucking authority. I don't have the, you know what I mean? I'm a minority. So I don't got that power, whatever y'all claiming that men have. I don't have that fucking power. I'm right there with any other minority at this point. So you can't say that. All I see is that men, and I'm a man, I'm going to have to speak up for us. Men, Father's Day just passed. No one said a motherfucking thing about Father's Day. Fathers congratulated fathers on Father's Day. Not the fucking mothers, but fathers did. How fucked up is that? How fucked up is that? That's where our society is. Because men don't mean a motherfucking thing. Men don't mean shit. We're enemies. We're predators. We're all sorts of things. And yes, I'm going to fight for men because I'm a fucking man. Yep. I find it funny that when a man has issues in the States, it don't have anywhere near the amount of support of the opposite end. No company is talking about no-fault divorce. No company is talking about the self-termination of men. No one's saying any fucking thing about men. No company is out there saying Happy Father's Day, except for fucking one, and they only did that shit for publicity, which was the Naughty Dog. That was one fucking company that I seen, and that was because their game was based off of a father that lost his child. It's, to me, and we live in a world where things are just so knee-jerked. Any little thing that insults you or you feel uncomfortable with, it's automatically a fucking a dig to you. It's automatically an attack towards you. I myself am a Christian, and you know what I get every fucking day? I go online that I believe in an imaginary God, that I'm so fucking stupid, that evolution is the only thing that happens, and anybody that likes religion can shut the fuck up. Oh, and by the way, we did this premature termination. We caused this shit, by the way. We did that. Somehow. We did it. Because of our beliefs. People are incredibly uninformed about all the shit. And yes, I'm rambling. There's a lot of shit that I really wanted to say. It pisses me off on how uninformed people are, just in general. You got people running around saying that they banned premature termination. They banned it. They didn't fucking ban it. They relinquished their control and allowed the state to do what they fucking want to do with it. And it actually makes it easier for you to overturn that decision if it's localized to the state. Instead of you have to go through all these layers, you could just talk to the fucking state and do it that way. But nope, the knee-jerk reaction is instantly they're getting rid of fucking people of color. The women have no control over her fucking body and no LGBT. All of a sudden, it just takes leaps and bounds into this shit. without any fucking context. You can't talk about it because, again, this social media, this Twitter is lopsided to one side. And nobody fucking likes Christianity. That shit's been shrinking for I don't know how fucking long. All religions. Christianity gets so much shit. And everybody says these half-baked fucking excuses. Oh, the reason why war happens is because of religion. More specifically, is Christianity. No, bitch. It's fucking humans. That's what it is. Humans are fucking awful. That's what it is. If you take away fucking Christianity, we get fucking civil wars like we're about to have now for this fucking this Roe v. Wade. It's the disagreement that causes fucking strife and war. Period. No country is just going to willingly give their shit up. So you have to have a disagreement. I want that land. And the other person is saying, fucking no, I don't want to give you that land. And that's where the disagreement is. It's not fucking just exclusively religion. And besides, it's fucking almost 1,000 years before that. Like, come on, people. Like, there's no fucking common sense. It's annoying. This shit's annoying to me. What we ended up doing, we fucked ourselves. We backed ourselves into a fucking corner. I guarantee you all this shit and just the contradictions. Oh, you must wear a mask. We want to make sure that there's a federal law that you can't do anything without a fucking mask. And then for the people that didn't want to fucking wear the mask or take the vaccines, what did you tell them again? What did the fucking liberals tell these people? Oh, if you don't like it, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can stay right the fuck in your house. If the job fires you, that's your decision. You decided not to do that. So, in other words, it's not your fucking body to decide what you fuck you want to put in it. And then here's the argument. It's not about you. It's about the world. It's about the world. That's what Joe said, right? When people took the fucking vaccine, they still fucking got this fucking virus. Oh, we didn't get it as much. There was so many fucking excuses. You want to know something about religion? This is the funny thing about fucking religion. I may believe in an imaginary man, but you guys are literally worshiping fucking people, humans, whether it be fucking Kim Kardashian or Kanye West or whatever fucking famous person. You worship the ground they fucking walk on. And they're fucking human like you are. The same amount of chromosomes, the same amount of fucking cellular, roughly, right? Build up, the same makeup, and you worship these fucking people for what reason? People with credentials and degrees and shit like that. You worship them. Do you know that fucking corruption can happen to any fucking human? All these people that you worship, that you take their fucking word because they have a degree on a wall, you think that because they have a degree that they're trustworthy? Really? There's no such thing as corruption? If that's the case, there was a whole bunch of people back in the day with degrees and they hated black people or any other fucking race that wasn't the primary race that they wanted. They had fully certified, fully degreed up, and were awful fucking people. And these are the fucking people that you want to worship because you see them. You can't prove that religion don't exist either. You can't prove that evolution is the fucking main thing. You can't. None of this is provable. We don't know where the fuck we came from. No one knows. But I digress. I'm gonna get back on topic. The net of all of this is quite simply, I really do feel like corporations should shut their fucking mouths and continue to make games. If you have a political issue, you take that up amongst the people inside of your fucking company, or don't say anything at fucking all. You want to know why? Because you are doing nothing but causing division and strife. You're pissing people the fuck off. Because if you take one side, you automatically leave the other side out there. And it's going to fuck up your bottom line. And it's not genuine. Let's just keep it a buck. It's not genuine. Because if that's the case, Sony will be able to say with pride across all of the places that they actually like, they will be able to say that shit with pride, that they are proud of the LGBT and proud of inclusion and putting black characters in their games, and be able to go to fucking Afghanistan and everywhere the fuck else where it's banned at. But they don't want to do that because it takes away their bottom line. And I wish more people would see that shit. That's what I wish they would see that. Of course, because this is Twitter, somebody can find this and record it and take my shit out of context. I really don't give a fuck. People are upset about, oh, how dare you tell a woman what to do. Well, guess what? Men, we are always told what to do. All the time. All the time. You know what I mean? If I do get a wife and I divorce her, I can't do anything with my own money I earned. I have to give it to her, regardless, in the United States. No protection for men. None. We're supposed to just accept it. It's cool. If I get married and my girl has an affair with me and she has a kid by another man, I have to raise it, or else society will shun me. You know what I mean? So it's lopsided across the board. I wish people would understand that it is not that fucking simple. None of this shit is that simple. It's not simple. To just say one thing and keep it the fuck pushing. There is legitimacy when it comes to abortions. There's a legitimacy to that. You say it's a lump of clay, right? The clay, excuse me. You say it's a lump of cells, a clump of cells, right? Can't think for itself. But in Colorado, there is no term that you can stop abortions. None. It could be 8 months. That's basically a full ass child. And you can abort that motherfucker easily. Nobody wants to talk about that, though. Nobody wants to talk about the percentages of abortion and what is the grape situation and what is just people just actually I don't want to have the kid anymore. The Roe v. Wade situation was a girl that was really bitter about a relationship that didn't work, but she still had the kid in her fucking belly. And so what she did, she went to the Supreme Court because her state didn't allow it and said that I want an abortion for this. They told her no. So then she said a group of black people raped her to try to get this overturned. And that was this inception or conception rather of this rule 50 years ago. She was on record for saying that this shit was a fucking lie. Who's going to who punished this woman for lying? No one. She didn't go to jail. Was that fair? Nobody, that's why I say that when these companies say what they say, it's all to just get your fucking money. Because this information is out there readily for everybody to see. I'll post that shit up on Twitter and it won't get any fucking likes, but I'll see all the engagement. So people are actively reading it and ignoring it. Why? You don't want to know the truth. That's how this world is nowadays. Nobody wants to fucking know the truth. They want to be fucking blind and ignorant. Because they want that, whatever they want. Who knows what the fuck they want? I look at the outrage and it boggles the mind. The outrage boggles the mind to me. Anywhere from saying that religion caused this shit, and I'm like, no, it didn't. No, and it's not even banning. Like I said before earlier, it's a precursor to a lot of different things. This is actually a precursor to divide the country even more, to be honest with you. If you really want to know what I think about this situation, it's just there to divide the country like everything else. You got one company stating that they don't want this shit. You have another a company that states that they want it. And because people can't fucking divide the politics from logic, it's caused a great divide with this country. Like I said before, to be honest with you, if I could have it my way, the only thing that will be that will constitute the right to do it is any type of incest or rape, and it has to be early in the trimester to do it. That's what I would say. I wouldn't do it either. You know, and people have their nerve to say, it's a clump of cells. Like, everybody's a clump of fucking cells. Are you fucking kidding me? You telling me in Colorado a woman can fucking abort a 7-month baby and be cool with it? So you tell me, right? If they can do that and there's a clump of cells, how come people take pictures of the ultrasound and keep it? You know what I mean? Why are they keeping these ultrasound pictures? Oh, look at him. Oh, look, oh, it's so cute. I thought it was a clump of fucking cells. What about that? Why even have the system so you can see your child growing? I thought it was understood that most likely this rule is going to get mutated into something that is going to be more humanized than what it is. You know, it's probably going to be stricter, so people just can't willy nilly. And nobody's thinking about the doctors either. What are the doctors? The doctors, so they can keep their fucking job. They may not feel comfortable chopping up a fucking 7-month. They may not feel comfortable doing that. Well, who gives a fuck about them? It's about me. It's my body, my choice, right? Well, I'm the bad guy for stating that on the same face, you could take an ultrasound, right? And look at the fucking pictures and keep it with the other baby pictures. But then on the other side of your mouth, you say there's a clump of cells that it doesn't mean anything. Like, how sick did this world become? This is beyond religion. It has nothing to do with religion. This is what would you constitute as life? That's what this is. And it's for your selfish deeds, because let's be serious here. If 97% of the actual abortions are fucking, and not those situations where it's rape and incest, then you're doing it. Like, come on, man. It's unfortunate. I feel the pain. I feel like I feel what I get it. I get it. You know, you want to have the ability to do it in case something happens. Regardless how improbable it is, you want to still have the ability to do it because it's your body, right? But here's the thing, though. Even if that's the case, not everybody can do anything that you want with your body. I can't take my body and kill somebody. I can't do that without getting fucking without any kind of repercussions. Just because it's, you know what I mean, there's a responsibility in there. Somewhere there's a responsibility. It's this decadent life. Let me see who's won the request. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, what's going on, bro? Yeah, long time no talks, man. How you doing?
I know, man. I feel like I remember a while ago we spoke and we were talking about doing a space on like the almost religious teachings, stuff like that. I remember a while ago we were saying that because it's under attack like hardcore, man. And I was reading the stuff that you were saying, and it's like it is super fucking disrespectful. It's like everybody wants freedom of speech to say whatever they fuck they want to, but then when someone counters them with something, they take offense to it, and it's offensive. But tell me, it's your floor right now, man. I've spoken enough.
Oh, I thought you were gonna follow up with a question.
No, tell me what's going on, what's on your mind, man.
um, well, nah, I mean, I was listening to what you were saying, and yeah, I do agree with a lot of the points that you were making. Now, I just came up here to ask you a question to see how you perceive this. Is like because the main question is it has to do a lot with human rights, right? Like all human rights, right, and stuff like that, women, rights and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
Um, but why do you think that people feel that the child, right, even the one that's in the womb, right? Because we know science says that it begins at conception, and then by I forget which week it has its own heartbeat, it has its own DNA, it has its own brain and stuff like that. Of course, if you believe in a higher power, it has its own
So
soul and things like that. So we know it's a separate human being that's growing inside of there. Of course, it's not fully developed, but neither is a 1-year-old baby. It's fully developed. You feel me?
right.
Um, uh, why do you think people look over the everybody who's about human rights, right? Why do you think people look over the rights of the child itself to to live and be born and deserve a life?
The funny thing is, like I was saying earlier, for the people that sit there and say it's a lump of cells, there's also people that have ultrasounds and you can see the baby develop, and they don't look at it as a lump of cells either. So, like, who's right? What about premature baby, premature birth? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, and that, and then like whenever a pregnant woman gets killed, it's kind of as a double homicide. Like you kill two people, so they
Yeah.
they even by law they still consider um the child within the mother growing inside, right? They can still consider that a human being, because like I said, like some people take the route that, well, it's not fully developed and it's not a clump, or it's just a clump of cells, or I've even seen some people say, well, you don't have any consciousness. Well, I mean, you don't know, just because you don't remember. I don't remember what I was doing when I was 1 or 2 years old. I wasn't fully conscious, right? So, and I never understood that excuse. But um yeah, it's like um
To
it seems
answer
like
your question,
everybody else gets uh priorities are more important than the child who didn't really ask, you
to
know
be there,
uh uh
you know
uh,
what I
uh,
mean?
yeah, to be there and whatnot. And
I said that when I was in my teenage years, my mom would just get so fucking fed up with me, and I would tell her I didn't ask to be here. I'm grateful for what you've done, but this was not my fucking. I didn't ask for this. You know what I'm saying? So that still applies from 0 years to when you die. But to answer your question, it is absolute decadence of the Western society. This is not about
mhm.
freedom of your body or rights of the body. This is
Right, because
absolute. This
if
is
you saw somebody about to jump off a building, obviously, right, and you don't want to see nobody kill themselves, right? Like that's something that involves death. You don't want to see somebody hurt themselves like that, right? So what you would try
mhm.
to do, you try to stop them. But if that person turn around and say, "Well, this is my choice, my body, and if I want to throw my body off the building, then you should give me the right to." I mean, will people just stand by and completely accept that and be okay with it? You feel
That's
me?
the
So,
that's the funny thing. It's the decadence. People don't want to hear. People don't want to have this conversation. You want to know why there's a two piece. And I'll let you go, Entity Code. But this is a two piece um problem.
it's a very
There's the abs.
complex conversation
It
because a lot of
is.
people take things out of context, or a lot of people insert things in, or they use repeated lines over and over and over and over again, and they apply that as the truth, like reproductive rights and stuff like that, right? They to me it seems
Well,
like
well,
they
well. Let me ask you a question really quickly, so I won't forget. So this is an overall decadence, right? Of just I just want what I want. I don't give a fuck about anybody else. This is what is going on. It's a combination of I want to just abort. If I don't want the kid, I don't want it, and it's my body. But this is the thing about that situation.
but if a man
Well,
doesn't want it, he's forced to
he
take care
has
of
to
it.
fucking take care of it, or he has no say in it. It's my body. Well, that baby isn't yours though. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very complicated situation. And then the other side of the situation, right? This is the other piece, is that we are in a world that are sheep. People will take things,
Yeah,
little
majority of
catchphrases.
society, majority of what society says is what most people believe to be the absolute morally correct truth. Yeah.
Well, they do it. They do it to jump on a bandwagon. So I don't even think it's even that deep. See, it sounds great, right? To pick up on something like this and run with it. Like I see a lot of simp dudes that are, you know what I mean? What if I wanted the kid and she is her body? You don't get to have the right to have the kid. Like it's so many issues with that. So many, like a law, just one law can't fucking fix this. It is much more complicated than what is being put out, but it sounds nice on paper. You know what I mean? It sounds nice. It's the bandwagon. Like you're on the wrong, saying that you're on the wrong side of history also sounds nice. It's a nice little catchphrase.
Yeah,
People are
it's
like,
gaslighting to make people think
it's gaslighting.
side of them that they're the problem and they're the evil people that
They make it sound
stopping
so bad.
society progressive. It's a lot of gaslighting that I can't stand that goes on.
They make it sound so bad so the other side can seem like they're awful. That's what it is. It's a lot of gaslighting. It's a lot of making worst case scenarios into a majority of the situation. When, like I said before, if you look at the statistics, fucking 3% is the worst case scenario. Enter Chico, what you gotta say about this?
Yo. Can you guys hear me okay?
What's going on, man?
Not much. I'm listening. I'm hearing your guys' perspective. And I wanted to bring in something for consideration, right? So, you know, I identify as a Christian myself, right? And I look at the state of America and I look at this conversation, and ultimately there's some hard truths that need to be accepted regardless of how they conflict with our own moral convictions, right? So for example, in America, we are a nation based on the principle, or one principle, of separation of church and state, right? Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, founding fathers, wanted to infuse a system of separation of church and state. And then when you go ahead and you look at, say, I believe it is Supreme Court case Reynolds versus United States, which was in 1878, right? Just shortly after the Constitution was ratified. That's essentially the Supreme Court case that expanded the concept of separation of church and state. And even when you look at the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, one of those five freedoms is freedom of religion. But it says you have the right to worship any religion or no religion at all. But it also goes on to say that the government cannot show preferential treatment to any one religion either. So while we have to acknowledge that this is a nation where religion and government institutions are supposed to be separate entities. Now, there is no denying that there is some vestige of religious sentiment that was infused into our government, right? But ultimately, we are on the basis of separation of church and state. Now, when we look at this topic of abortion, most of the people that are in opposition to it, it's based on religious doctrine and their religious viewpoints, Christianity or any other religion, right? So uh, if that is the case, and the government is not supposed to be respective of any one religion or to even take religion into consideration, then we say, well, how do we form a government? Well, a government's laws are a representation of that society's views of morality, right? That is what laws are. They are a reflection of a society's values, ideals, and morals. So then I look at this situation here, and I look at some of the data, and I say, okay, well, only 37% of Americans are opposed to the idea of abortion, right? So, therefore, that's a minority. And we are also a nation that functions on the idea of popular sovereignty and democracy. So if the majority of Americans have quote unquote deemed abortion not to be immoral, and our laws are to be a reflection of a society's morals, values, and ideals, then one would assume that if a society has deemed this not immoral, then therefore the laws would reflect that. So when I look at this situation, I have to pull out my own viewpoints on this and say, okay, a nation that is a democracy, a nation on the foundation of popular sovereignty, a nation on the idea of separation of church and state. And then I look at this situation and I can only come to the conclusion from a legal standpoint and from uh, the foundation of what government is to be in this country, that being a republic, a democratic style government, then it makes sense to me that these things, that abortion would be legalized under the premises that I just said, regardless of my own personal religious and moral viewpoints on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is majority of society gets to dictate what's moral and immoral. Correct?
That's pretty much how
Okay.
civilized society
So
works.
at certain points in history, hold on, when there were certain societies that the majority of them said slavery was morally correct. That's fine because majority of them said that it was morally correct. Or other ancient civilizations where majority believed in a god, different gods that says to sacrifice your children, and you know what I mean, to their gods or whatever. Or other civil. I was just reading up about some societies that were cannibalism was accepted, eating other human flesh. So essentially, you're saying society itself, right? The majority rules regardless if it is immoral or not. If majority of society perceives it to be moral or immoral, then that's how everything should operate. Correct?
Yeah, so pretty much, but let me just add some clarity here, right? Because you asked a really complex question, and I appreciate the challenge of what you're asking, right? Morality exists on a spectrum, right? And it's not as black and white as we like to make it, especially if we subscribe to Christianity or any religious view. But we as human beings tend to be ethnocentric, meaning that we think that our viewpoint is the end all be all. Because
Correct. I
I,
agree.
I could go to Saudi Arabia, right, which is a theocracy. Their whole government is based on the principles of the Quran, and I could show you all kinds of things that we would consider human right violations, almost universally, right? That would be considered um, heinous. But over there, that's that's a reflection of their society. So it's not as simple as to say, Chris, just because a society says something is right, does it make it right? The answer is no,
Right.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
answer is no. But
Mm-hmm.
a government and the laws are a reflection of a society's moral compass, and especially if it is a democratic republic like America, then the will of the people is to be done. And has that resulted in some of the most disgusting, heinous atrocities to exist? Yes. Is that okay? No. I mean, hindsight being 2020, we look back on history and we say this is fucking disgusting. But it doesn't change the fact, though, that whenever you function in a democracy, it is a government based on popular sovereignty, and that's kind of what
So let
goes.
me ask you this. So let me ask you this. Um, what decides what puts the timer on things that we believe that is morally correct, and that changes over time? Like, let me ask you this in a better way. Like Chris was saying, at one point it was morally, accepted that slavery and lynching of black people was accepted. There was public lynchings, you know what I mean, just for the person. So, I think about this. When they abolished slavery, all the people that kind of set back and just kind of accepted that reality had to now accept a different reality, that slavery was wrong, and in fashion that slavery was happening in the United States. Why did that change? Why did it change? It seems like you're really
Well,
good with history.
here's the thing. If you're asking me why it changed from a moral standpoint, I don't really have all the answers there, right? But if you're asking me why it changed from a historical standpoint, you know that the dissolution of the Union occurred, with the civil rights. Abraham Lincoln basically said that any new states that wanted to join the Union could no longer have slavery. He thought this would be a slow destruction to slavery. He didn't want to. So basically, slavery could not expand any further than the states in which it was. But the southern states felt that any restriction or limitation to slavery was an ultimate threat to the slavery in its entirety, which was accurate. So, they seceded. Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation of 1862, which essentially freed the slaves but had no legal authority, technically speaking, over the Confederacy, because the Confederacy felt that they were their own country, while the Union did not respect them as their own country. And here's the thing. At one point, everyone looks at Abraham Lincoln as the great emancipator that history has said he was. But at one point, Abraham Lincoln told the southern states that, hey, if you rejoin the Union, all will be forgiven and you can keep your slaves. They put up a middle finger to him, and then things escalated to, the Civil War, and then we have the 13th Amendment. So ultimately, Abraham Lincoln was a person that hated slavery. We see diaries written from him from his youth. He hated it. He found it disgusting, and he was going to assault it, and that was his goal. Now, here's the thing that is a little hard to answer or complex with the question you ask, because you phrased the question, Chris. Well, you said, well, the majority of people were cool with slavery, but the fact of the matter was the majority of quote unquote people, and I use that intentionally, right? Because blacks were not considered human beings; they were considered property, and later on 3/5 of a person. But the reality is, black people outnumbered the European colonists and the white Americans, like in monumental numbers. So at the end of the day, it really wasn't a majority. It was a majority of the people that were recognized as human beings at that moment in history. But it was definitely not a majority of inhabitants of America, if that makes sense.
So I'll ask again. Let me ask you directly, why did Abraham dislike slavery? You said he thought it was disgusting, right?
Correct. He hated the idea, the concept of slavery. And like I said, there's diaries from when he was a young man that they have that shows his sentiments towards the institution of slavery. And I want to say one more thing. Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, his original draft, Thomas Jefferson hated slavery as well, even though he was a slave owner himself, right? Because that's kind of like a contradiction. But when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, slavery was to be abolished in it, and he would get bullied by the other founding fathers because they said, "Whoa, slow the fuck down! Like this isn't going to work. We're not going to be able to successfully declare independence and then also have this, like, put slavery on the back burner. Now's not the time." And unfortunately, that was always the case. But Thomas Jefferson, like I said, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, slavery was to be done away with as well. Because we know the famous opening, all men are created equal, which was the greatest fucking lie ever told for 150 years after the Declaration of Independence was written.
So let me ask you this. I wanted you to take a stance
I
on this.
apologize, Gamecast, if I'm not answering your questions as direct as
possible. No. It's direct. It's direct as far as it can go. And you see where I'm going with this, because being a Christian, you never stated where you stood when it comes to this particular conversation.
So my stance on abortion is this, right? I personally, I don't like abortion. I don't like the idea of abortion. If I was ever with a woman and she wanted to abort our child, I'd have a serious problem with that. There are, of course, instances where I think it makes sense, like
Like
rape,
health complications and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like
rape,
my wife
incest,
before I
health
got with her.
complications.
Yeah, like no,
But
but like
if
my. Go ahead.
if
Go
I
ahead.
could just say one more thing, because
Go ahead.
that's not my complete answer, right? So I don't like abortion. For me, I don't like it, but I don't I still fall into the pro-choice category, because despite my personal sentiments against the idea of it, I I have to recognize that this is a democracy, this is a republic, and this is a government that is based on popular sovereignty and separation of church and state. And if we are those things, then we can't control this aspect, especially based on a religious fueled mentality. So even though I don't like it, I also don't believe the
You have to
government should be controlling it.
But here's the thing, though. There are going to be cases where the government has to control certain things, right? And you want to know something too? This is not a religion. This is not a religious situation. You know, I don't believe it's a
Yeah.
religion situation.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll say this, right? If you can give freedom of your body to a woman, then what's the check for that? You have a daughter. You post her frequently on Twitter. If
Correct.
if your I don't know, wife, girlfriend, whomever was pregnant and she said that I don't want this kid right now, you have no say.
Correct.
Screw religion. Forget that. Forget that. We're not talking about that, because that's not what this is. This is like, men don't have anything to say about this in any capacity. And then you get these catchphrases. Oh man, it's going to tell a woman what to do with their body. And then they mention these slither of situations, right? But they fail to mention these situations about if I wanted to keep my child. That's half the genetics. I have no say with it because it's her body. But it's not, that child isn't her body either. So you remember how I told you before when you said that Abraham thought it was disgusting to have slavery. When are people going to realize that this isn't fucking cut and dry that people want to make it out to be? That this needs to go back to the drawing board, and it needs a massive revision. See, the thing is, there's a lot of things that was controlling people government wise. For instance, if you believe in democracy and all this other stuff, right? Then some people that didn't want to take the fucking vaccine shouldn't have to have taken the vaccine or have their jobs in jeopardy. So somebody could say this about a woman. If she don't want the fucking child, she can go to a state where she can abort it. Now, there's a rhetoric online that says that when she comes back to her home state, that she can get fined or imprisoned. That's her decision, right? That you take the consequences. Just like if I wanted to take if I didn't want to take the vaccine, then my consequences was I don't work.
Yeah, I would say one thing is slightly, and I don't want to turn this into a COVID thing. While I agree with you that there was definitely pressure and manipulation to ensure people took the vaccine, the only thing that I would challenge with what you just said is the differences government sanctioned punishments and then corporate level punishments, right? Because corporate institutions, with America being like a free market, mixed market economy, and most of the time outside of certain regulations like monopolies and FTC reviews, we have a system of laissez-faire, hands-off approach between private institutions, and these private institutions were essentially the ones bullying the American people into taking the vaccine for flights and things like that. So I would just say it's slightly different, the comparison you're making, because a government instituted punishment as opposed to a private corporation having rules and guidelines that one must adhere to in order to stay employed. Those are slightly different.
Well, here's the thing, though. Well, here's the thing. If I no. We're not talking about the job though either. Okay, so let's skip the job thing. If I wanted to fly without and they needed these vaccine checks, I wouldn't be able to. I would be denied it, which is partly the state. Like there's certain things that they want state-wise. Even if you take that away, this Roe v. Wade situation isn't banning abortions. It's giving the control, or it's relinquishing their control to the state.
Yeah. See,
So this is still muddy.
Yeah, I agree. And there's just one more thing that, like, when I look at this, right? Because I told you, like, I don't like abortion, but I also don't like government control in this matter. But my last point, if I could, when I look at this, I've done a lot of research over the last 24 hours looking at various statistics, right? And what I've seen is, and what I can kind of come to the conclusion of is, in a large way, this, like I said, that I recognize this is not a ban, right? This is turning it over to the states, but the states will essentially ban it, especially your red states. So what we have here, and you don't, as you said earlier, you don't have the option to go to another state and get it done and return back to your state without facing government sanctioned punishments. So when I look at this, and I look at who are the recipients of these abortions and all these things, and I look at the ramifications and impact of this, here's my conclusion, right? So I've seen that 23% of African Americans are make up the foster care system, right? Of everyone in the foster care system, 23% are African Americans, which make up the largest percent of people in the foster care system. And then I look at what are the biggest determining factors in someone getting an abortion. Number one, it is low income. And number two, it is being like a single parent, not married, right? So low income and not married. Then I look at what percentage of African Americans are raised in a one-parent household, which is the mother. 67% of Black American youth are raised in a one-parent household where it's just the mother. So that group that I'm referring to would fit into the category of one of the two biggest determining factors in people getting abortion. That's not being married. The other one was low income. So then I looked at the statistics about welfare and saw that 38% of African Americans in this country are on welfare, which makes up the largest group, with Hispanics being next at 14%, right? So let's just say people of color right now. So people of color are the largest group of people on welfare, proportionally speaking. So then I said earlier that the other determining factor is low income. So 45 million Black Americans are welfare recipients. 67% of Black youth are raised in a one-parent household, not married. So when I look at who are going to be the main people getting abortions, it's your Black and Hispanic women. That's what the numbers support. And then the low income, right, and not married. So in a lot of ways, I can only conclude, based on all of those things, that this is an assault on women of color, right, and impoverished women of color.
What about? Okay, so what about the Black women of color? Who's in the womb?
Can you elaborate on your question a little bit more, please?
Right, because you saying it's an attack, right? Because like me,
Right, what do you mean by that exactly? Like, where are you going from it?
When I say it's an attack, Chris, what I mean is this is going to disproportionately impact women of color more than any other group, and the statistics and numbers that I reference kind of corroborate that.
Right.
Can I interject in here? Like, I don't. My question is, I just don't understand what's the point of forcing somebody to have a child. I'm gonna enter cheat code. Forcing somebody to have a child who doesn't want that child. Also, the mortality for Black women who give birth is what? It says is like 2.9 times higher than everybody else. You know what I mean? So minorities face a higher risk of death for giving birth on top of the issue. So everybody's trying to use morality. I don't care about morality. Morality is fake because we pass by homeless people every day. There's homeless children on the street every day. Morality is a bullshit argument. My argument is, why force kids into this world where the Southern Baptist fucking Conference just got caught for hiding pedophiles, the Catholics, the Boy Scouts, you have people killing kids,
So
you
the
have people
extreme,
shooting up kids.
the extreme
No,
is what you're using, right?
that's it's not extreme. It's common. There's tons of kids being trafficked. There's 44
Well, yeah,
states who
I
allow
know.
child marriage. That's not extreme, bro. That's every day. There's millions of kids going hungry who are not in any, who are just in low
Well,
fucking income households
to what
every day.
to what
The
So
Jeremiah,
kill them
states.
because they're going through struggles.
well, no,
It's
Chris.
not killing them.
Well, here's the thing, because
No, I
we
mean
that
that's exactly what it is.
that's the gray
This is where my
gray
no, hold
area
on.
though.
This is my stance. Anybody can do whatever they want. Like if that's what people want to do, right? If women wants to do that, right, with themselves and they go under the, it's my body, even though it's a separate body inside the woman, but you reproductive and whatever and all that stuff, right? That's cool. Do that. What I'm tired of is people sugarcoating and not calling it exactly what it is. Not calling it exactly what it is, right?
Okay, you
Science
want to
back me up. I don't need a religion to back me up.
you want to
Science
call it
back
murder? Fine. We bomb fucking millions of fucking kids in other
It
countries
doesn't.
all the time. Nobody.
right, and we see that as immoral and
We
something
need
that
to
shouldn't
focus.
happen.
We need to
See that
focus
as
on
immoral and
exactly at
something that
this
should happen.
subject because you
And
can
no,
you can do.
morality isn't fake. Morality is not fake, because that's like saying that anything is subjective. Raping kids is subjective. Murdering women is subjective, and everything like that. There's things that are black
Chris,
and white.
that goes back to my original point.
Hold on. There's certain things that are that are certain black and white. That what I'm saying is like, cool. If this is what the majority of people want, just like Chico brought up the statistic, right? Well, 60% of people see abortion as okay to do. Cool, but call it what it is. Stop saying it's just a compass cell. Stop saying it's all this shit in order to, because when people have to say it that way, they know that it sounds even more fucked up when they say it that way. So they go with all these other things, these other excuses and whatever. Just call it what it is. Just say, hey, I have a right to kill my child because I don't want him no more or her no more. Just say that. Just say that.
You're saying no more, but the child's not even born yet. The child cannot exist outside of the woman's body.
In your state, you can. There isn't a time frame. They don't have a cutoff point. And then what about premature? Like I have,
Yeah.
from what I hear,
a 1-year-old can't sustain himself.
What I'm saying, as long as the baby, hold on, as long as the baby is in the womb, from what I'm hearing in your state, they can abort it. So I'm going to go along with this, right? Now I'm not 100% on that one, but this is some of the things I didn't do an extreme amount of research on that. But what about like my sister? She was a twin. She was what do you call it? She was a preemie. You know what I mean? She was 5.5 months, and that puts her square in a situation for a lot of states to be aborted. She ended up surviving. So it's like, where's this cutoff and lumps of
my thing is, no, I don't. I'm gonna go with Chris right because I don't give a fuck about kids at all. You know what I mean? Because clearly nobody else gives a fuck about other humans. So I don't give a fuck the kids fucking breathing or not.
Honest. I don't have a problem with you being honest.
What you're saying right now.
I don't have a problem with you being honest.
I really appreciate that shit. And you know me, Jemiah. That's what it is. Right, but there's a lot. Hold on for a minute. There's a lot of people that say they try to mask what they're doing and try to pretty up the situation and make all sorts of like examples that, you know what I mean, when they're not calling it what it is, or they demonize the other side of things. No, yeah. At one point, this is what we were saying before. I'm not sure if you were here, Jemiah. At one point, morally, it was okay to do public lynchings with black people. That was okay. Everybody was cool with that. So there is a such thing as a moral compass for sure. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, over time it changes and mutates. It comes whatever it is. Go on, Chico.
I was just gonna say, like, I know there's so much gray in this conversation, and the only reason I'm here is because I know I can be, in the midst of this room and be able to have this conversation respectfully. But here's my issue, right? And I would probably be more firm in a stance closer in line with Chris, but the reality is this: the majority of people in opposition to the idea of abortion are white evangelicals, right? That's what our statistics show, the demographics who mostly oppose this, right? Neither of you two fall into that category,
probably
right?
in America, yeah.
Yeah. But we're only
But not
we're
not worldwide.
yeah, but we're dealing with America, right, and the Constitution and
Right.
the review of this, right? So the majority of the people that are in
Because
opposition
the majority
to this,
is white people, but there's a lot of Black and Hispanics that don't believe in that neither.
yeah. But what I'm saying, the majority are white evangelicals, right? And here's my biggest issue, right? As you guys know, as a former educator, I was in the education system, the public education system, for 10 years, right? And I taught in impoverished schools. And I saw kids coming to school hungry. I saw kids come to school, with poor hygiene, wearing the same clothes day after day. I remember 12-year-old kids who were the adults at the house while the single mother went home and worked, and they took care of a baby and the rest of the younger siblings. And then they came to school exhausted, hungry, neglected, forced to be an adult at the age of 12, and then performed and acted out poorly in school. I remember spending my own money to buy snacks, bringing bags of laundry home for students and washing them at my house. I don't say this to be a braggart. I say this so you understand the
I was
perspective.
I was one of those kids that was extremely poor. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I say this because I think it'll give you some context to where I come from, right? My problem with this is these people, the people that stand in opposition to this, only care about that Black and brown baby, because we already have looked at the statistics I referenced that said these are the majority of people, that this groups that are doing this. They only care about that Black or brown baby until the point that they are born. And then after that, they are a Black adult, a brown adult. They are the drain on the society, the delinquents, the people that get pumped into our prison systems and neglected throughout life, and they stop caring about that human life at right at the point where they're born. They will advocate for their rights, for dignity, for everything under the sun until they're born. And when they're born, because everybody loves a baby, but everybody don't love Black and brown people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, they stop caring. They stop supporting. You look at the foster care system. The people are mostly taken out of households for neglect. Think about this, right? Because one day my goal in life is to foster children. But think about this. There are so many parents that have their kids stripped away from them because they don't have the adequate resources to provide a certain semblance of quality of life for the child. The government will come, take that child, place it with a foster parent, and then give that foster parent the resources to help raise that kid, while never giving it to the Black and brown parent, and strip them out of their home because they didn't have the resources. But you're going to give the government's going to give those same resources to someone else.
Bro,
That's what
I
I'm
never
saying.
thought
And-
I never thought in my life
Yeah.
I would agree with Inner Chico, but goddamn, you were preaching.
And yeah, no, Chico, you're absolutely, and it's terrible. And I think the government should do more about it. They should get more, money and all that stuff. Like, the system is really fucked up in how it's designed and stuff like that. Like a lot of this shit, especially like systemic things, that've kept minorities, trapped in lower income situations. Margaret Sanger, starting Planned Parenthood to stop
Black
people from reproducing and everything like that. And I get that it's a fucked up situation for the kids, right? And there should be more done about it. But I don't believe, for me personally, right? Anybody can disagree or agree, right? I don't believe that killing the child or stopping the child from living is the right solution. Or
Well, neither do I, Chris.
Right?
in
my opinion.
But
Right?
Chris,
there's a lot. I think a lot of people.
I respect Jemai, because at least Jemai would tell you straight up, right? But you know what I mean, and not try to
no one's ballsy
So,
enough to really do
I
that
don't
shit.
agree with them. I think it's morally.
But
I don't agree with them, right?
But
But I can still
you gotta respect it though.
But Gamecast,
it's
can I
the
ask
people
the
that
two
try
of
to
you a question?
sugarcoat it. It's the hypocrisy that how people will say, right, including myself, right? Whenever injustice happened with the police killing black people and stuff like that, shit, man, I'm right along with everybody else. This is fucked up. Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, right? But it's the people that would say Black Lives Matter, but then they don't have
That's
a
where it
problem. They
stops.
don't have a problem with other black. They don't have
In
an issue
Chicago and
with,
shit like that, when black on black
other
crime.
with stopping black babies and other black people from being born. So how can Black life truly matters if you're stopping other black people from being born, or
let
you're
me
for
ask you
women,
something,
but then you
Chris.
stop other women from being born and stuff like that. That's the
All right.
that's the part that that it's the hypocrisy. Like I said, people want to do what they want to do. I don't agree with it. I don't think that they should and everything like that. And I agree with Chico. More needs to be done with the government and stuff like that. And since Gamecast brought up the topic of Christians and Christianity in America and stuff like that, statistically, the majority of the people, parents who adopt kids, and the majority of the adoption agencies have been Christians. Statistically, the majority of them in America. So there's a lot of them that are putting their money where their mouth is and stuff like that. But then there's a lot of them that abuse their powers, that would go to the extreme and stuff like that, like we see in the Senate and shit like that. Listen, I don't agree with a lot of the things that the Senate does, because I don't believe a lot of them are truly sincere, right, and stuff like that.
No.
That's why I don't identify as conservative or anything like that. You know what I mean, or whatever, because I think they all fucked up.
Let me say this, Chris. Enter Chico. Remember what you were about to say. Remember that.
I just want to ask a question to both.
Yeah,
you
just hold that really quickly.
Got it.
The original topic was these corporations need to shut the fuck up about this shit, because they're not, as Chris was saying, they're not genuine with what they're saying. Because if they were, they wouldn't be altering their marketing for different countries just for a fucking dollar. They would have just not do commerce with them at all. That was the original thing as we got into there. And plus, I did want to speak about what exactly is going on. This is a very uncomfortable conversation to have, because there's too many gray areas that people they don't know what side to go on when you start unpacking this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not 1-to-1. You know what I mean? It's not black and white. If a girl could terminate her child without the man's consent just because it's her body, like, it's still my child too. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of great things there too.
With that point though, I would say I think if people want to be a Christian nation, people need to stop having sex before they're married. Like, people need to stop
point blank period.
Hold on. Yeah, Jemiah, that is the ultimate solution, but realistically, in society, in the world, and just humans in general, that is not possible. He get
it, but here's the thing: it's such a nuanced thing, because guess what happens when it comes to media, right? You always see promiscuous black women doing whatever, right?
Yeah,
that gets fed into our community and gets adopted. In that particular case, it is a target to people of color. It's a definite target. Is why we are in the situation that we're in now. And Chico, what were you going to say? My bad.
So I'm going to pose a question from like a moral and spiritual, philosophical standpoint here, right, to both you and Chris. You guys said that a portion of your beliefs on this matter is vested in some form of spirituality and just morality in general. As two people who identify,
as well too.
Yeah, as two
Secular
people
science.
as two people who identify as Christians, do you guys subscribe to the notion that a child born is pure and innocent without sin?
No.
Chris?
I'm not sure, honestly.
No, in the Bible they say man is wicked from the womb.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's right.
So
we're already born to rebel and and go the opposite way. Yeah.
If you have a child, if you have a child or young siblings, you already know what that shit is.
Yeah, because
I know how I was.
You inherited your parents, right? Your parents' sin or and DNA.
Well, I mean, that's the reason I ask is because I wanted to kind of understand where you guys are coming from, right? So the doctrine and the idea of original sin, that's a Catholic doctrine, right? But most non-denominational don't subscribe to that. And in the Bible, Jesus is having a conversation, and he points to children. And he says, be innocent and pure like children. There's an age of accountability,
Yeah.
right? So if a 6-year-old dies, the Bible is not explicit in telling us the age of accountability. But if a 6-year-old were to die, one would assume they go to heaven, right? If they're innocent and pure, like Jesus describes children to be in the Bible. So let me ask you this, Gamecast and Chris. These aborted children, they go to heaven, right?
No one can really say because that's a
I
personal
don't know.
relationship. That's number one. Number two, let me
But
say
I
this.
mean-
No one can. No, but hold on. Well, no one can say if you're going based off of that particular doctrine, right? I will say this, right? The punishment is much worse if you know that you're sinning and still do it. You know what I'm saying? So I believe
And
that
Jesus
the
also
children.
said, "Don't hurt the children," as well. Neither. So, like,
But the Bible
if
also.
you know what the procedures of abortion are, like they'll tear. It depends on how long it is, but they'll tear their arms off, they'll
But
rip their
Chris,
heads off and stuff like that.
also in the Bible, it's
So
allowed. You're supposed to respect your master if you're a slave. Also in the Bible, it tells you how to cook up a potion to make your wife miscarriage if you think she's cheating on you. The Bible says a lot of shit. This
Well,
is my thing.
wait, hold on,
well,
wait,
the slavery thing is
Jemiah,
taken
hold
out of
on.
context, and you need
Yeah,
to understand what type of slavery they meant back then. It's not necessarily the one from 300 years ago and stuff like that. It was more of workers in debt, so they would sell themselves to masters so they can pay off their debt. But there was laws to prohibit them from abusing it. So the ones that the white man did for the black people, that type
that's
of slavery
something
was
else.
completely
But
prohibited.
if slavery was so awesome and cool to do, then why did Moses lead all the Jewish
Nobody
slaves
said
No,
it was cool
out of
because they
no
were
one,
abusing
That's what I'm
slaves.
saying, though.
but
The
nobody.
form of
But hold on,
slavery is
wait,
good,
hold on.
though.
No one said that. The thing is to pay off whatever that. But here's the thing, though. I'm not even going to bring it into a
They
religion
were
thing
abusing the
because
slaves.
because the thing is when it comes to like the religion, my whole objective is not even to bring religion to this shit because that's what was like. That's the blame.
Yeah, because
Is
most
religion
people
people did it.
throw the conversation out the window and think you
They
just
feel
say shit when
and
it's
it's
in the
Well,
Bible.
the reason I
that's not what I
originally
wanted to
posed
do
the
anyway.
question, though, the reason I originally posed the question is because I believe, based on my understanding of the Bible, right, and the New Testament, Jeremiah was referencing the Old
No,
Testament.
I don't subscribe
And,
to that. Oh, it's okay to
No,
go.
right,
the
but
whole Bible,
But
is the thing. But go on. I'm sorry.
but
Go on, please.
but the point I was making is this, right? As someone who identifies as a Christian, right, I believe children are innocent. I believe children are pure. I don't subscribe to the idea of baptizing children either, which is another Catholic thing. And I was born and raised Catholic. I don't.
the Bible never says anything about baptizing children.
Exactly.
No,
But
that's what he's saying. Yeah.
I won't get into that. But I would say this, right? I believe that those children who are aborted because of my faith, I believe that they go to heaven, right? That's what I believe. But so I'm not worried about their souls, right? But what I do know is this. There's three, and this is the last point I'll make. Based on empirical data and research, there's three determining factors in life that determine your success. These are the not exclusively three, but these are the three most predictive factors, right? In this order. Number one, social economic status. What level of wealth did you grow up in? Number two, did you grow up in a two-parent household? And number three, the level of education that your parents have. These three factors are the biggest predicting factors in whether or not you will be successful in life or in turn will grow up to be a burden on society, someone in the legal court system, all that shit, right? These are the people. And when we looked at the two determining factors for abortion, it's low income and one parent.
I didn't do anything to him. He got cut out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. He just cut
Yeah,
off.
trust me and believe. I didn't do it.
This is what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave it at this. I would rather have more. I would rather have abortion legal for people who don't want kids than to have kids born into this fucking world where everybody is evil as fuck and then doing the most heinous things to these children. I would rather have that kid killed at fucking 5 months in the womb than have him born to be molested or whatever the fuck these people do to these kids. I think that's a better option for these kids. And like Chico was saying, the white people who are rich and affluent in Georgia, they're going to fly to California to get an abortion, right? They're going to fly here to get an abortion. All the poor people who can't do that are going to have kids. Those kids are going to be put into the prison system, which is $11 billion in profit off of fucking slave labor, basically. So my thing is, to me, this is like basically a ball and chain for minority communities who are not able to fucking make the right decisions. Maybe this girl didn't want to have a kid at 15, but now she's forced to. Now she's going to have this kid. She's going to be struggling for the rest of her life. That kid's going to be abused and all kind of shit. I would rather have that kid be fucking dead in the womb, murdered in the womb, before he ever touches a foot on this fucking planet. This planet is fucking trash. And until we get free childcare, fucking school lunches, which they just kicked back a couple weeks ago, the government denied free lunches for kids. I would rather, till you put all those things in place to support kids, we shouldn't be able to force people to have kids. That's my opinion on that. Yeah. Until you put in all the safeguards for people to have kids safely, stop taking kids away from fucking, in the foster system itself, it's very damaging for kids. You can ask people about the foster system.
Oh, yeah, it's
there is good and bad. But what I'm saying is, in our society, we do not value human life after it's born. And that's the fucking truth. That's the God honest truth, bro. Yeah. So I would rather have these kids murdered in the fucking womb.
Some people do. You can't say everybody, right?
No. He's just for sake of conversation. Yeah. He has to generalize it because this is a nuanced thing. I will say this, Jemiah. The outrage that's going on now, to me, is for fucking social points. They're not even looking at the complicated, all of the cogs that are moving with this situation. They're just regurgitating shit that they saw. Some of them are lying about situations. Some of them are making whole ass stories that never fucking existed to prove a point. That's what's really crazy.
Right.
They need to sit back, right? And really, and like you say, to be honest with you, I feel like life should have a chance. So I don't agree in that particular case, but I understand your sentiment. This is an awful, wicked fucking place. And in terms of the religion, bro, like you would need, me and Chris would need like a week of spaces that's like for 4 hours that really break that shit down. Yeah. It is way more complicated than just taking things out of context.
Right.
I will say this though. And anybody that's on YouTube, I'm on YouTube, and this conversation is on YouTube as at Gamecast. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. I was just thinking that I want to do this quickly because we kind of came to an agreement here in this particular case, right? That we understand what's going on. So I will say this. And this is kind of changing the subject. Let me let Inner Chico say what he finishes his comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got cut off by the Wi-Fi, but I was just simply saying this, man. It really just we and Jemiah mentioned it. The safeguards have to be put into place. Like we have to, if we want to have this conversation, right? These people that are standing up against it, it's like, well, then stand with us. Right? I say with us because, as I mentioned, statistically speaking, it's people of color's lives who are being aborted in the largest number. So why don't you stand all the time, right? You pick and choose when our life has value. And the hypocrisy in this situation is completely undeniable. You can't sit
100% agree.
You can't sit here and say we need to save these lives, but then you don't want to save these fucking lives when it matters, because a lot of the people who live in poverty are the ones that fall into drugs. They're the ones that fall into violence. They're the ones that are raised by the streets. They're the ones that go to jail. What kind of fucking life is that? You advocated for their existence so they can be imprisoned, dead, struggling for what?
You know what? Know something? Let me just say this. And I want a roll call for a different topic for you guys, if you don't mind.
I wanted to say one more thing, then we can move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on.
Yeah, but Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, cheat code. Absolutely, right? It's fucked up, that there's not, well, it doesn't seem to be as much of push and support for children once they're born. Heck, wasn't there like a fucking some like shortages of like baby milk or some shit
Yeah,
like that a
Chris,
couple weeks ago or some shit like
Chris,
that?
yeah, the Republicans blocked baby shortage, which came from a
Yeah,
Trump
this is why. Yeah,
administered thing. So it's like that's the great example. They blocked getting baby formula, which from a Trump administration NAFTA deal was what put us in this situation, and the collective,
right.
culminated into that, and they blocked that shit. So when the kids are here, they don't fucking care.
Yeah,
This whole
and
system is
this is
trash.
why I can't stand like I can't stand neither of them, Democrats or Republicans. But I can't stand Republicans because they're not truly sincere in everything that they say, right? And then they're like the main party that identifies, right, with like my faith, with like Christians or whatever. But sometimes their actions prove differently, and then it makes the rest of us, right?
Look hard, look
Yeah,
bad.
look
But here's the
terrible,
but here's the thing
people
too.
use that against the whole the whole thing. But even with all the trials and tribulations and stuff like that the kids grow up with, I think that's a separate issue that we as a society um needs to come together and figure out a way to fix this problem with the low poverty and stuff like that. I just don't believe that not killing a child or not allow them to live is the ultimate solution for that. It's more nuanced, it's way more complicated than just that, right? But one thing I was saying, I posed this question earlier today on Twitter, right? Because I wanted to see, particularly for parents, I wanted to see if any parents, right, and specifically the ones that struggled with their kids in terms of financial low income, maybe single parent or anything like that, to see if any of those people, even with the hard times and them struggling, did they ever regret any of their kids? Because of the hard times, and pretty much the majority of them, if not all of them, said no. Even when I was with struggler, I was struggling with my child, and there was scary nights and stuff like that. I still found happiness with having my child and having a relationship with my child or whatever. So majority of the parents that even struggle, right, a lot of them don't really truly regret having their kids. The main thing that they will regret is the situation that they're in and how they have to raise their kids, or they regret the person who they have a kid with, but not necessarily the child itself as much as a burden. You know what I mean? Even though there is exhausting, and I can only imagine, right? I'm not a parent myself. That's why I ask parents.
And I say, I answered
Yeah.
your question, Chris, and I'm a single parent. I've been a single parent for. Sorry, there's a plane above me. I've been a single parent for 4 years, and my daughter's turning 6 next month. And I'm a one-income household. I live in the same house that I bought when I was married, and that house was purchased with 2 incomes in mind. And just to, I know Gamecast is moving on, but it's tough. There's some struggle, there's financial struggle, but at the end of the day, for me and my personal feelings, it's like it's still the greatest thing in my whole entire existence is my daughter.
And you can
Well,
tell because the way that you
real quick
function.
though, I don't think any parent, unless they're an absolute fucking monster, would say they regret having their child. Like
I've seen
I mean? Like,
I've seen it.
No, yeah,
no,
yeah.
and they're
Matter
fucking
of fact,
monsters,
a
bro.
lot some of the cases of foster homes is because parents abandoned their children and they didn't want them. You know what I mean? So there are parents like that, but obviously that says more about the parent's character than the child, and that's not the child's fault. You feel me?
No, I'm saying, but like,
Right.
I just don't. I think most parents wouldn't just say, "I regret having a child." Like, there's like
Yeah,
I said, there's
they're
monsters out there who are like beating their kids and like, "I hate you" and all this crazy shit.
Yeah,
But it's like,
abusive parents and
as
stuff
far
like that.
the kid goes, like, say you're a struggling mom, right? You're a single mom. You're sleeping in the car. Your fucking kids trying to go to school. Like, all that shit to me is so terrible. But society itself does not give one fuck about those
they don't
people.
care. They don't care, and it's crazy. I want to say this though, because they don't ultimately care about. I'll say this. There was one person that was on Twitter. Whatever. I try to allow people to have their own freedom of whatever they say. But these are the same people that say, "Oh my God, you're a horrible person if you if you're pro-life or whatever the case is, and you should do this." And they care so much about people, right? But this dude said that I was going to block everybody that showed a picture. It was like this dog that was attacking this guy, and he picked up a plank and hit the dog in the head, and he was pissed because of that. You know what I'm saying? It's a white guy, but he was pissed. He was like, "I'm gonna block anybody that's retweet this video or whatever the case is." But he had no problems looking at a human get fucking murdered or break their legs or any of that fucking shit. He had no problems with that shit. You know what I'm saying? So these are the same people that will be like, "Yo, pro-life or pro rights or whatever the case is." It's fucking sickening. These are hypocrites across the
I
board.
also think that people shouldn't have pets either.
I was going to say, there's actually studies that say that people that watch the commercials of all the pets that need to be adopted and they're all malnourished and things like that, people get more of an emotional, sentimental response to abused pets than people of color in developing nations. When they ask for aid and assistance, there's actually studies that show this.
And it's fucking crazy when you think about it. These are the same fucking people. And the funny thing, Chris said this earlier. He says that Republicans are associated with Christianity, which he's actually right. And they do some heinous shit too. But there's also Democratic people that are hyper racist. I'm going to retweet that shit.
Yeah.
They are some of these Democrats are the most racist fucking people there is. You know what I mean? And they relish in, these social discourse, to say that to choose the right, the higher moral ground. And they use this fucking platform, honestly, Twitter, to pretend like they have no problems. It's just sickening. But I'm going to go into the last topic. I want to ask you guys this. It's not going to be long. It's just something simple. I want to actually give a shout out to Hideo Kojima for being ahead of this whole abortion situation. Did you guys? Yo, he really did. Yo, this dude's smart as shit. He really did, though. Because they were trying to kill that baby, right? And he tried to revive that shit. They was looking at the baby as it was nothing but a fucking tool to get you through, the fucking areas and shit like that. And the baby had personality and shit like that. And, he just couldn't allow for that to happen. He risked the whole mission for that. I'm just saying that shit was baller. It's just funny how that dude be always on top of shit, yo. The motherfucker was 20 years on top of society crumbling because of social media. And now this motherfucker is on top of this shit. It comes to this Roe v. Wade. But my question to you guys is just the last topic. I'm going to start with Inner Cheat Code. What is your favorite game of all time? And why?
Final Fantasy X. And
why is it?
I'll promise to keep it brief. Number one, it was a technical, mind-blowing masterpiece. None of us had ever seen anything that had ever looked like that in 2001. Voice acting, in an RPG, the leap from Final Fantasy 9 to 10, and yeah, 7 to 8 was a big leap, but still the leap from 9 to 10. But here's my thing. I played the game only twice, and the 2 times I played the game were 2 decades apart, 20 years apart. So I played it around the age of 12, and I was like, this is fucking incredible. And I always I always enjoyed a story where the hero doesn't win. And I always love things where the villain, it's like the Joker movie, I forget what you call it, a character study or something like that. So I always like examining the villain. But here's why I have an even deeper love for this game that reaffirmed it as my favorite game of all time. During the lockdown, I played the remaster. So I played my favorite game of all time for the first time again 20 years later. And having experienced life and love and loss and hardship and understanding that sometimes fucked up shit happens in life and you just don't get that happy ending. And having experienced that over the course of 2 decades after originally playing it as a kid, And then understanding these themes and having experienced and lived these types of themes of love and loss, that shit just hit on a whole nother fucking level. Sphere Grid's incredible. The only complaint I could have about the game is there's some corny dialogue at times, but that's a minor complaint. It's a masterpiece, 10 out of 10. Favorite game of all time.
What about you, Enter Chico? What's your favorite game of all time?
Who?
No, Enter Chico. I'm sorry, Chris Righteous. I apologize.
Usually, yeah. To me, it's two. But if I had to choose one, it's probably Final Fantasy VII. My other one would be Ocarina. Well, not Majora's Mask. Excuse me, not Ocarina of Time. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it wasn't my first RPG. It was my first Final Fantasy though. My first RPG was actually Mario RPG. If y'all remember that one, because that was the only game my grandmother had.
Super NES.
Yeah, the Super NES.
That was by Squaresoft, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was actually it was, and that was because it was. I used to go over to my great grandmother's house every weekend when I was a kid, and she had a Super NES, but all she had was two games, which was Super Mario World and Mario RPG and stuff like that. But anyways,
that's how it is.
Back to the question. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII. Because at the time, you know, it was mind blowing. Even though the next game after that or games after that looked way better within the generation. Even a year later, games look way better than FF.
It did.
You know, Final Fantasy VIII came out a year later and it looked better. But it's just no, everything about it, man, just blew my mind. Like you know, starting off in this crazy city and stuff like that. I didn't really know what was going on, but you know, I was sitting on this badass mission and stuff like that. Because one thing I love about the game is that the first 5 minutes are action packed and very fast paced. You know,
yeah, they got right to the fucking point.
Yeah, right to the point and stuff like that. And they were able to keep that pacing, even when the pacing slowed down. They still made it a lot interesting. But what I really appreciated about was one, the story was mind blowing, especially when you come to the twist about who Cloud thought he was, and that you know he was mixing his own memories with somebody else and stuff like that. And that the entire time of you going up to see Sephiroth, it was more of Sephiroth playing mind games with Cloud to force him to come see him and shit like that, like right. And then not only that, the different unique gameplay situations that the game puts you through, other than it being, you know, an active turn-based system with very customizable materials where you can customize the characters to do whatever you want. But all of the mini games that put you in different story situations. For example, when you got to Junon, you know, you had to do like in Rufus inauguration march, right? You had to dress up as a soldier and you're going to the march and you do this little marching mini game and stuff like that. And then, you know, after that you get you get a doom buggy. So now you're going through rivers and stuff like that. Right. And then, you know, at one point you snowboarding, right? After Era died. Then another point you go underwater, big ocean to explore with a submarine. And then another point you go up in space. And then you get an airship where you can literally fly around the world. Like if you keep going north, you're gonna come back through the south and shit like that. So it was like seeing a game where you could fully, you know, explore the globe and the secret summons that you had to get special chocobos and chocobo races and these different mini games at the Gold Saucer. And it was just fucking mind blowing at the time, and it's always stuck with me. Even when I replayed it again about 2 or 3 years ago, before 7 Remake came back out, and I got the platinum, I was like, man, they just don't make shit like this anymore. You know what I mean? And then having characters like Yuffie and Vincent be optional characters, but they still were added into the story and stuff like that. That was like a lot of RPGs didn't really do that, things like that afterwards. Even Final Fantasy games, they didn't have all that variety in their gameplay mechanics and different situations that they put you through on the journey, you know, and with an incredible payoff at the end. So yeah, I mean that's always been my favorite game of all time. It's always been the one that still sticks out to me. But there's other games that are just as high, but not quite as high as it.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm gonna keep myself for last. By the way, Guambo, he states on YouTube that we should bring a woman in this topic for the Roe v. Wade, but I don't think it's not that simple. It's not that simple to say.
There's some women that will agree with it, but then I know other women that completely disagree with it. So it's like, you
Yeah,
still
it's
wouldn't
not.
be able to gauge properly. It would be more anecdotal than anything. But go ahead.
Yeah, because it's unfortunately it really is a super complicated situation that you just can't tweet about it and set it and forget it. It's too complicated for that, and I wish people would understand that. But Jemiah, what is your favorite game of all time?
My favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics.
What's up with these Final Fantasy
Hey, let's
horrors? Bro,
go.
I don't like y'all.
I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics. That's the first
Get on
time.
my
Like
nerves.
graphics and everything aside, like they conveyed so much just through text and simple fucking like 16 or whatever bit fucking sounds and shit. Like the job system. Like I've never seen a game like that where you were able to like switch your class and just do whatever you want. Basically, set up your whole team. You go recruit people, name them how you want, monsters and shit. Like the tactical aspects of the RPG, just being that, you know what I mean? Because I'm a big XCOM guy. I'm a big like CRPG guy. So being able to like just be tactful, you know what I mean? When you're going through these battles, the storyline was crazy with the Braves and all this shit and all the fucking zodiac signs and shit. Like you even had clout in the game and Air, you know what I mean? Like the game was just, I think the game was just so far ahead of its time as far as like allowing you to do like basically whatever you want to set up your team. A lot of games, RPGs force you into these certain roles. Like this person's the healer, you're the this and that. You can switch everything up, bro. Then you can mix and match the job classes. Like the variety and like the way to tackle the simplest fucking fight is just beyond me. I mean, I don't think any game has ever come to that like that level of being able to just customize your squad and go into a battle and fight it 1,000 different ways. You know what I mean? Like I just love that fucking game. Like, and I want to remaster it, but Square keeps ducking me.
Yeah, they do. Because everybody see, I'm gonna wait until Final Fantasy Remake is completed before I play all of them. I don't want to be piecemeal. Well, actually, I probably should do it. Because why wait?
Well,
I'm clear.
it's a different take on Final Fantasy VII, and the way that they're doing it is, I understand the first game, it was just one game. Actually, later on, it didn't become one game; it became multiple games that you had to play to know the story, whatever. But the way they're expanding it, right? Because is now a different story than the original.
Okay.
For better or for worse, some people don't like that, but me, I'm loving it because they're doing an amazing job. But they say they wanted to do it like the Star Wars, right, or like a God of War 1 through 3, right, where it's just like each game contains its own self story, which the first game part 1 did, which was a story about Midgar and them escaping Midgar. But there's an overall story, like in Star Wars. There's an overarching story that you have to watch all 3 films to get the over story. You have to play God of War 1 through 3 to get the, or God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok to get the entire story of Kratos and Atreus. You know what I mean, and things like that. So each game is not a situation where it's like, it's like, oh, they're purposely, cutting it up and, you know what I mean, and piecemeal into the like that. You gotta understand that the people that are behind the remake are literally the same exact people who wrote the original Final Fantasy VII. And obviously 25 years later, if you get to choose to remake a special game you did 25 years ago, you probably have new ideas, right? And you probably have more ideas to expand the story. And you don't want to do things the exact same way. And I look at it, to me, as a huge Final Fantasy fan, I look at it as like, fuck, I'm getting more Final Fantasy VII games for years to come. That's how I see it. But I could understand the other sentiment as well too. But
I heard about that too.
It's
not the same. It's not the same. So I can play an ugly ass game. I will have no problem doing it. So if they put it in the premium service where you can buy it, I'll have no problem just picking up the Final Fantasy VII and just playing the original one. I don't mind that. A lot of people can't do that. You know what I mean? But going on to me, my favorite game of all time, like you said before, it's not the top. I mean, this one is the top of all of it, right? But there's other ones that are kind of like equal, but in a different way. But I'll say this for the sake of everyone else probably knows what I like. But Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of all time. Absolutely. That story with the little words that they use, the little script that they had, really fucking hit home with me. You know what I'm saying? It so many emotions. The soundtrack is like through the fucking roof. Absolutely, like you can't. I don't know of a better soundtrack that encapsulates the mood of each Colossus. You know, it just was an amazing experience. It was I love ambiguous stories too. So it wasn't. You didn't quite know. You know, it wasn't black and white. I love stories like that. You know, where
It's
you.
actually on my top 10 of all time as well, Gamecast.
Yeah, it was a beautiful looking game. It was paced wonderfully. You know what I'm saying? The art style is just tops, man. And then like the story about somebody that would really do what they want. I mean, they would do anything for the love of their life. And then you had this entity that you don't know its origins, and it seems evil, but at the end of the day, it still fulfilled its promise by bringing the girl back to life. You know, so it was like, was it really evil? What was the purpose of them separating this thing? We don't know what the fuck it is. You know, it followed its purpose. I mean, it followed its promise, and still, it was just really deep. I could play that. I think I play it annually every fucking year. Every year I play it to the end. Every year, same time. I can't get enough of that game. You know, so. But listen, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Energy Code. Thank you, Jemiah. Thank you all for actually watching this shit. I really appreciate it. I know this was a very, very sensitive topic. I'm kind of glad that Twitter actually has spaces because just everything could be taken out of context and no one could really explain it. Like somebody could just take a piece of the shit and just retweet it over and over and say that you're wrong. It's a different vibe to actually hear nuance.
Some of my shit is taken out of context a lot, and I be hating that shit because people start to insert points and arguments that I never made with my tweet. I hate that shit, bro. I hate that shit.
They run with that shit. It's so fucking irritating. And it's like, you know what I meant, and you're doing it just to win an argument. You know what I'm saying? And you see that a lot. And even if it's not about you or me, you see that so much. You know, people just run with this shit. And as volatile as Twitter is, I think space is probably one of the best things that come out of Twitter to allow people to actually seamlessly speak without, you know, and have like this particular space, you know. I do. What's going on, Big Money? But that's what I believe. You know, it is a very sensitive topic that you just can't just post something and just run with it. And I'll just wrap everything up by saying this: don't look at these corporations and think they really care about you and your rights. They don't give a fuck. Not Sony, not Nintendo, not any of them. No one cares.
They are not your savior. Neither are the politicians.
None of them are. You gotta use common sense and kind of break down a situation before you go out and really just because they say they align with what you believe, and you want to sit there and take that corporation and use that as ammunition, or you want to braid that company's politics into or the company's ideologies into you. And once you do that, you made a critical error when you start associating a company with yourself. You never subdue that. It is a corporation looking to get your money. All of them are. They don't care. There's no LGBT. They don't care. No matter how many times they color their signs and say Black Lives Matter all over the place, they don't give a fuck. None of them do. You know what I mean? It's all about the dollar, and people need to start taking a closer look at what these corporations and government is doing. Like what we just discussed. When Energy Code was in here, we basically stated that, hey, like, a lot of these abortions affect Black people. What's up with that? You know? I mean, there's a lot of situations where Black people, no one gives a fuck about Black people unless it makes them look good. You know? There's all shootings and murders all over the place in Chicago. No one talks about that. No one cares about Black people killing Black people. They don't give a fuck. It's not noteworthy.
When the real question would be why is this subset of human beings put in this situation to begin with in a country that in a first world country, that has the resources, to improve people's lives and stuff.
I mean, I hate to say it because I'm not that guy that uses the race card, and I'm a guy that I don't really. You can have your beliefs, but when you're in a position of power and you stifle a group of people, it's hella sus. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's why is the question. There's a lot, and that's a layered conversation in itself. But you look at the situation, and it's like Planned Parenthood and all those particular situations. Like, it almost looks like you just want black people to just die. You know what I mean? Just, I don't give a fuck about your I don't like you. You know what I mean? So we're going to dress it up to make it look like, we're there for you. And we're going to, there's laws and rules that need to happen. You know what I'm saying? Point blank period. I'll put it that way. You can't just run amok and without any rules. So people are, oh boy, it's, you can go on and on and on. Really, it's a deep conversation, and it's something that instead of wearing shirts, this is Black Lives Matter, which those black people are taking your money and spending it on something that has nothing to do with the black community. You need to start looking at shit like that would make an impact. What that Black Lives Matter corporation should have done is literally take that money and start building up the black community, town by town. They didn't get those. None of the black communities got anything in return from that shit other than memorabilia and shirts and masks. No one wants to watch that. No one wants to look at a lot of the situations that's happening in America. It's just it's the immediate points to make you look good. A lot of these people that are on social media, especially Twitter, they are racist. They don't like you. And I'm not talking about blue check marks. I'm talking about in general. But it sounds good. It makes them feel better about themselves. This overly decadent nation that we have is just awful.
Josh, I think I think you pretty much said everything my point is. Like, I don't think people care enough. I don't think kids should be born into this world willy nilly when the society is so fucking just goddamn damaging and just toxic and fucking just corrupted and rotten to its fucking core.
It's a shame. It's a shame. I think we all come from the type of same place, but just a different type of perspective. I think we all know, especially everyone that's in this room, and I'm so glad that everybody could sit down and have an intelligent fucking conversation, because we all know that's almost impossible to do. Especially on social media, you could post something and people will be like, I'm blocking everyone that don't believe what I believe. Like, what?
Yeah, and I don't be understanding that because, I mean, there's people in my family, right? There's friends and stuff like that we have strong disagreements. Matter of fact, like this whole thing was like, like my sister-in-law, she had an abortion a few months ago and stuff like that. Now, of course, we talked about it, and and then of course we didn't agree, and I was telling her whatever, but she ended up making her own decision and stuff like that. We even offered to take care of the kids or whatever, even though I wholeheartedly disagree. I was saddening and stuff like that, especially because my wife has complications where she really can't have kids like that.
That's a shame.
You know what I mean? But even with that, right? Knowing that some of her situation, and me having the understanding that there's just people who are lost, not really going to see what there truly is that they're doing. Me believing what I believe in, my faith and stuff like that, right? I still love and support her. Like, I haven't gone at her in any type of way because of her or anything like that. We've hung out a few times after that and everything like that. And I still love and support her, even though I don't think what she did was right for me personally, morally, and things like that. But I'm not shaming her. I'm not saying that she's, a terrible person, even though I don't agree with her decision or anything like that. You know what I mean? So this subject does hit home for me, right? Like this is the thing, but like at the same time, I believe what I believe in, and I have reasoning and logic behind what I believe in, and it's not as simple as like, oh, it's just cause, and I want to control people and I want to take people's rights away. It has nothing to do with that at all. So yeah, with like other people, right? I try to be the example of if somebody disagree with me politically or with my faith views and or what I mean, people religious views or whatever, right? I have the full understanding that not everybody signed up for what I believe in, and not everybody's gonna believe in what I believe in. Not everybody cares in what I believe in, right? And so, but with that, I'm still able to be cordial and respectful, and still, like Paul said in the Bible, you still got to be a servant to people, even the ones that disagree with you, even though even the non-believers and stuff like that. And that's how I see it. It's like because if not, we just making the world worse when we shun each other because of differences of opinions.
People show themselves as extremely mature when you can amicably agree to disagree. You are incredibly immature if you can't take someone else's point of view and understand it, because you understand what was going on with your sister, but you don't agree with it, and it doesn't take away because no one's perfect. It doesn't take away the fact.
Right, I'm no better than her. I made decisions that
especially,
I'm no better than her. Yeah.
Especially being a Christian, you should know that. In the church, there's a lot of that's a whole thing. My sister, this is why this hits home for me too. Nobody wants to talk about women like this, but she slept around unprotected and got pregnant. Or I'm sorry, she slept around. Excuse me, she didn't get pregnant. She lied to the guy and said that she was pregnant. And she said that she wanted to keep the kid, and the guy was terrified. He was like, I can't do that. And she says, oh, well, we can work this out. I would abort it, but I need the money to do so. He gave her the money to do it. Even though she wasn't pregnant, he didn't know, and she went and spent it on clothes. Nobody want to talk about situations like that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's an outlier. Well, so is the percentages that you look at when it comes to.
You know what's a crazy story, Josh?
What?
My next door neighbor, right? He was a black kid, and his dad was a cop, right? And this dude had everything you can possibly want as a kid, right? Like they had the full play set, you know what I mean? The fucking motorized little Jeeps, bikes. And I was always just like, bro, I wish, you know what I mean? Just looking at him like, bro, I wish I fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like he's having all this shit, all these toys and shit. Turns out his dad was molesting him and beating his grandmother. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
And I just look back like, bro, like I'm glad I didn't have like this kid had, even though I was raised by a single mom. You know what I mean? I felt like I had a way better life than this kid. You know what I mean? So I look back like there's a lot of reasons on both sides of the argument. And I just think that at the end of the day, the only people who are affected are poor people. And that's the damn truth. You know what I mean?
And black poor people.
And all they're doing is keeping a surplus for prison and keeping a surplus for low income workers. That's my opinion on why they want abortion to be legal. But
You're right.
I mean, it is what it is.
And like I said before, at the end of the day, what I don't like is how lopsided social media is when it comes to this. Like you get socially lynched for having a difference of opinion, and that's not fucking fair. That's not fair. That's unfortunate that the world is like that. You can't deviate from the society just to fit in.
Most people go on with an emotional and they will have a hard stance, right? Because if I had a hard stance, I wouldn't talk to 99% of motherfuckers, and I would complete. But I believe in human redemption. I believe that people can have a hard stance one day, but then as time goes on, maybe something, educate themselves, or maybe they saw something that had made them have a different perspective. That's why I don't believe in giving up on people like that. You feel me? But some people were just like, nope, you believe in this? Oh no, you don't believe. You believe it's wrong for women to kill their kids or whatever. If that's their choice, then not. Then
I'm blocking everybody. I don't give a fuck.
I don't want anything to do with you and shit like that. Now, to me, that's cool. That's cool, but that says way more about your character, because I'm not going to do that with you, even though I completely disagree and I completely think you're immoral of what you're doing. But that says more about their own hearts and characters than it does about the.
I saw the stuff that they were talking about. You. This is the thing I'm going to wrap up with. I saw this how they were talking, and you articulated perfectly well. It was perfect English as to where your stance was when it comes to the religion, and they still they weren't getting it. And I'm like, what part of this statement is unrecognizable to you? Like, what's happening to this statement? Literally, it was just so funny to me that they didn't want to believe anything but their own shit, that they were literally blind. They were literally blind. Craziness.
Yeah, I mean that's how social media. That's how social media works, man. It's extremely hard to have important discussions like this with very limited characters and people reading what you're saying through their own interpretations. You know what I mean? Like even
that shit was clear. No, that shit was clear as hell to me. It with the limited characters, they didn't want to read what you were saying. Yeah, it's just flat out. It was clear as day to me. I got what you were saying, and I was half asleep.
And essentially, what I was saying was like what I was saying earlier, because this group of political party associates themselves as Christians, even though I think a lot of them aren't really true, because a lot of them are very disingenuous and don't really live their life, even when they use the Bible for justification. That doesn't mean that they're really about that life and that they truly believe in it. You feel me? Because
churches aren't like that either.
KKK said that they were Christians, but obviously if they really were, they wouldn't have done the things that they've done, because they know the Bible prohibits exactly what they were fucking doing. You feel me?
Yeah, it's like people who are pro-life, but then they say they want to kill all faggots. Like, it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like that's what I'm saying. Like even with my sister-in-law, right? And it was actually last year. Even with my sister-in-law, like I didn't shame her. I didn't. Or now you're gonna go to because I'm no better in my decision makings growing up and she's still very young, right? She's like 21 and stuff like that, right? So she's still very young and things like that. But but what I was saying is like I'm tired of like the people would view them and then they will completely bash the entire community. They'll completely associate, like me saying, this is what I believe in, I'm a Christian. They'll start to think that I'm with that group of those people, right, that are making the decisions, or that I fully agree with them, or that I'm fully on their side, when that's not really the case. And so
you can literally say that I don't like this, and then you're like automatically a Republican. Like, what the fuck? What? Huh?
Right. And there's certain things that I do agree, and there's things I agree with conservatives, and things I disagree. The same thing with Democrats, right? Nothing is really like, I don't think no party is truly 100% right or 100% wrong at the same time. You know what I mean? But my thing is like, because I know, right, some more people now feel more comfortable in error to like completely slander my faith. And to me, it's double standards and hypocrisy. Because if I came out and started saying, well, why y'all not slandering Muslims in their countries? You know what I mean? Because they have even stricter laws. And matter of fact, if you are of any other religion over there, you're gonna get killed. You know what I mean? Like if you look up if you look up the world's most persecuted group, right? The world's most persecuted. That's all you have to Google. Look at the first 10 results. It tells you that Christians are being killed the most around the world. Not in America and Europe and shit like that, right? Obviously, there's no persecution going on over here from us, other than people just don't like our views and stuff like that, which is fine, right? I can handle it and things like that. But it's like, but they won't go after other groups publicly, openly, as much as they do for my faith. And to me, that's a double standard, because if I start going up other groups, which I don't go after Muslims. Yes, I don't agree with them. I don't go after other people, other groups, lifestyles, and things like that, right? And shame them or anything like that, even though I may disagree with a lot of that stuff. But I don't go out in the open and just openly fucking slander them and shit like that, right?
Because, I mean, we have had a lot of Muslim hate and sentiment after 9/11, so we can't really 100%. Just say like it doesn't happen. But also, I don't think it's right for other people to be even getting involved in other people's countries like that. You know what I mean? If you don't want somebody else to come in our country and make laws, then you shouldn't go to other people's countries and make laws. It's for those people to decide and revolt and do all kind of shit, to push back. But That's my opinion on
but
that.
most people, but a lot of people do get in other countries' business, right? Because there's a lot of people outside of the country that are weighing in on this particular issues. And whenever Ukraine and Russia or whenever the France shooting happened and stuff like that, is because it's a worldwide issue. It's not just particular to a country. So I don't mind other people talking about like other countries or whatever, because other countries talk about us all the time and weigh in on our issues. And people don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I want to say that shit too. Like, there's a lot of people from the UK talking about our shit. You worry about your own fucking country.
Because they think we're fucking backwards, bro, and I have to agree with them.
No, but they have their own fucking issues. Instead of guns, they got people getting stabbed. Like, come on. Like, worry about your own shit. You got your own fucking problems.
There's a lot of issues, like, like gun violence in America is like astronomically disproportionate to any other country in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I just think that, like, at the end of the day, the problem is people, and the less people, the better the world's going to be.
Yeah. The more people that were
depopulation is one of the secret society plans. So
well, look what they're trying to do that shit too. But whatever. But thank you guys. I'm a fucking this topic always. Every time I do a podcast, this shit drains me. It's not in a good way. You know what I mean? Because you have to. I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation without discourse and have an adult conversation, and understand every side. That's fucking remarkable, especially on Twitter. That's ridiculous. But by the way, you guys have a great night. I'm gonna pack it up. Don't forget to